Yeah. Yeah, I just got back from a track meet. It was a twilight meet and it ended like around 9, started at
Oh,
1.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we got back around like close to midnight, and I didn't go to
Yeah.
bed till close to 1 o'clock. And then of course I was up since like 4 a.m. yesterday going turkey hunting, and then I decided to run around 7:30 before heading out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Well,
was almost up for
uh,
almost 24 hours.
oh, nice. Yeah, I watched the Pirate game and they put up like 17 on the Reds, which was fun. And
Whoa, damn.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I live right by the stadiums, so like
Damn. So you're a
I have,
Pittsburgh fan?
but yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, I guess because funny because 'cause I'm a Bengals fan, so they're rivals.
Oh shit. Oh yeah. Well, the Reds were in town, dude.
Oh, damn. Well, no,
You a
I'm
Reds
not
fan or?
even a Reds fan. I'm actually a Detroit Pistons fan in the NBA.
Yeah. How's see, like I'm just so I'm a Western PA guy, so I'm really loyal and I kind of
Yeah.
see, the world through like that lens of just, these are teams they're born with and live or die, and with the Pirates, it's just kind of die. And the Steelers are a little bit better. So
Yeah. Well, for me, I never, like, grew up with, like, that I never got that association, like, you had to cheer for your local team. 'Cause my parents,
yeah.
they didn't grow up being, like, big sports fans, and I think, like, growing up, I kinda, like, noticed as a kid, like, Laker brands or Celtic brands, because obviously
Hmm.
the Lakers are or Yankee or Red Sox, but as a kid, I just never had that resolution, um, and I think how I became a Bengals fan from what I remember is I think I was, like, preschool, kindergarten, and I think I had a fascination of tigers, I
Uh-huh. Yeah.
believe. And
Yeah.
when we got our first my older brother got a video game, 989 Sports, you remember that video game?
I grew up on like God, like some of the older Madden and NCAA college football. Like in college, we played,
Yeah,
like that to our detriment. And
yeah.
like some of the newer stuff that came out, I would go over to friends' houses and we would play John Madden, and like and then that just got, I don't know, there were too many buttons at a certain point, like, to actually play that well. And I was like, I don't like to lose badly,
Yeah.
so. Uh, but yeah, the uh, Bengals fandom can be rough too. So like,
Yeah, but I, like, got that was the 989 Sports, that's what you said, and then they're not around anymore, but it was, like, 989 Sports Game Day '99 with Terrell
mhm.
Davis on the cover, and I was
Oh yeah,
browsing through all the teams, and I saw the Bengal team, I was like, "Oh," and of course, I didn't know how to play, like, video games at that time, like,
yeah,
I probably sucked at it at first, but I just always played with that team. And then back then, we only had, like, a few channels on our television, and so I
uh,
guess and it was, like, that fuzzy CBS channel, and then every time the
mhm,
Patriots and I was obsessed with this team, the Bengals, and every time the Patriots came on the local station, because we live in Vermont, we would get the Patriot games on,
yeah.
I was, like, excited to see the Bengals game, and so it
Oh yeah,
stuck,
that
but
was like the
obviously
Carson Palmer era of the Bengals and
um
Shadow
before
Joe
the
and
Carson Palmer era, I think it
oh
was
the
like,
Jeff Blatman
um,
or Jeff
John Kitna.
quarterback.
I think John
Oh yeah,
Kitna was the yeah, back then. Then Carson Palmer came in like '03, but I think he sat for the year and then they got rid of John Kitna. Yeah, but it was during like when John Kitna was starting, I think, when I really got
mm,
into it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Kenya was decent. Like just
yeah, I remember him being okay, like and Carson Palmer was
yeah,
good, but he had a falling out 2011.
yeah, yeah. They went to the Raiders and
Yeah.
just so yeah, and so we're kind of the Penguins just got knocked out by the Flyers,
Nice.
and uh so it's I don't know, I just Pittsburgh's a sports town, and
Mhm.
you know we had I guess if you want to talk about just what's going on in St. Louis, but it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
That you were actually, like, when I saw that you and Joe flew down there, that lit a spark with me. It's like, man, like they already have something going down there, and I was impressed that you guys traveled, and so I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool. So that was a spark from like an organizing standpoint to like get something bigger going on down there.
Yeah, and they did a really good job. I think, in terms of, like, getting together for, like I think they had 6 weeks of planning, I believe, and it was just
Yeah,
really, really well done, for what like, especially, like, in that such a tight window, but I think it was just, like, besides your guys' event, I think it was just, like I mean, of course, I've never been to much organized beer miles, like, time trials, but I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
was, like, hands-on,
I
like
mean, this might be better organized than our World Classics because we have a staff and it's like
yeah,
World Classics all volunteers and we're traveling across the seas and we have to keep it really lean, and so we kind of delineate between like what Chris does on the video side and what we do to just kind of administrate the event. And, we try to keep it as like, it's in our best interest to keep it as simple as possible. And
yeah.
so I think there's going to be more bells and whistles and this is set to be a downtown event, finishing at a bar, which I think is amazing. So
Oh, that's always the plus.
yeah, yeah. And I think, having all these teams too is going to be exciting as well.
Yeah,
So
and trying to build, thank you for notifying me about, Team New England, Max joining in. I think
yeah, yeah. So
he's the one that finished 3rd, right, last year at the World Classic?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, he's
Oh, perfect,
podium guy.
perfect.
Yeah, you
Where in
guys.
Canada does he
So I
live?
think Quebec City,
Oh, yeah,
which
so that's
that's why, like,
yeah,
when we were trying to look to where to put them, New England was well. Plus, like, right now the only World Classic runner was you, so
yeah,
like he was a good fit there. Chicago's looking really good, with
mhm,
Melanie and Chris Robertson and Claire Purcell. Um, Austin's going to be pretty good with Liz Lesser and Will Ryle and Corey Belmore's team, like
mhm,
see who he puts together. Andrew Benkowski may be on that team. So that would be pretty big. That would be a good one too there. And I think that the challenge is finding the third runner from those cities.
yeah.
So
Gonna have trouble
uh,
finding that 3rd New England guy because I don't know anybody else that
I think you just have to cast a net out,
Yeah,
I don't know, like figure out who in Boston. And I think that's where you as a team leader or the team leaders really have to find the new talent that's up and coming. So part of this was, or the North American race is just bringing some old heads back, then also kind of finding like, keeping people that help build the sport in the sport, and then
mhm,
also finding new people to kind of, you know,
yeah.
make it a deeper field and, just try to qualify for this world team.
Yep, and I think it's good because like, we're already hearing, like, newcomers come in, like the couple Princeton runners,
Yeah,
uh
yeah, yeah, yeah. The Moeller brothers, yeah.
Oh, brothers,
But
yeah.
one of them won Penn relays, so that's
Oh,
cool.
damn. So
P37.
that's gonna be good competition. It'll be interesting how well they
Well,
compete.
we always, there's plenty of fast runners in this country, and there's very few
Yeah,
fast beer milers. So,
yeah,
we always are, we're always happy when really, half most of the sport is being able to run fast, and then the second part is being able to handle your liquids. So
yeah,
I know they've run fast milk miles, and so like now they're graduating up to beer, and so I'll see how that transition goes. So it could be smooth. It may or may not be smooth. They may be great at it. They may not. So we'll see.
yeah. You don't know until till they try.
Yeah,
And it all depends because, like, you hear people I think most of the time you hear people do, like, good milk or chocolate milk miles and then just suck at the beer mile. But
yeah.
I also heard, like, if you give
Carbonation.
'em
It's the
credit
carbonation. Yeah.
yeah, but some people might actually do better in the beer mile than the milk mile just because the dairy one
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, some people will say, "I feel like the milk or the eggnog would be harder." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, if you can stomach it, it's faster
yeah,
because you're doing it out of solo cups and it's quicker chugs and you can take off each lap, like, quicker." But I will
yeah,
say the only suckier thing about comparing doing eggnog and beer is you definitely feel more gross and lethargic, slow, and definitely I feel more sick to my stomach after finishing an eggnog mile than the beer mile. Beer mile, you can
yeah.
forget how you feel afterwards you finish. because you tend to just
Yeah,
go
yeah,
just yeah, you're buzzed and you're completely, like, ignoring, like, everything you just, like, felt, but the eggnog
yeah,
mile
yeah,
is challenging.
yeah. I mean, your blood's flowing.
Yeah,
It goes through your system fast. So, uh, yeah, I've never done any of the milk or anything else miles,
mhm,
but you know, I tend to the carbonation's the thing that sets the beer mile apart, and from just being a liquid, being able to process liquids and running
mhm,
through. So,
yeah,
but I was never really fast at the beer mile. When we would do it with, I never ran in my prime. I did it, well past my prime. And I used to run, we used to, like John Markle got a lot faster. He and his brother, who's been our ref for a lot of the, early beer miles, is going to be in Cologne, this year. So, we used to race, and like his brother's a bigger guy and he was a better chugger, and we would run like this is like high, like in the 640s to 7 minutes back, 15 years ago. And like I finished in between the two Markles, like John would beat me by a little bit, and then I would run past Joshua at the end. And so it was just, a different mentality. And then once we started doing the World Classics, John decided he wanted to be really good. And he put his mind to it, and he did. And so he went from being like a 640 guy to 530 guy pretty fast.
whew, that's pretty good.
Well, he learned like even though he like was at the start of the sport, he hadn't really perfected running a beer mile. He was just there, at Queens at the start. And then like Jim Finlayson and Corey Gallagher really taught him all the tricks, and that was part of it. And that's one of the things about coming, if we have new beer milers coming, they will get a lot faster just by meeting up with you guys and just
Yeah,
learning, yeah, just learning the ins and outs of it. So,
yeah, it takes some time to practice and, but I had, like, a question, like, did you
yeah.
guys get inspired to do this beer mile at like, because I remember back in
I don't have.
2014, it just, like, took off like a shot after that sub 5, like, Jake
Yeah.
Nielsen video. Was that the
Well, James
inspiration?
Winston and I were like teammates on the Nike farm team, like in the early 2000s. So Nielsen ran for University of San Diego. He was like a D3 champ, and then he ran his fifth year. I don't know. I think he was getting his PhD at Stanford. Um, and so he ran like he was on the team during like the Stanford heydays, like when Ryan Hall and like Don Sage and like they had all the NCAA champs. He was part of that team, So he was just known though. He'd come to parties, like we were post collegians at the time. He would go to parties and he could just crush beers, So he was kind of just known as, and his nickname was the Beast.
Yeah,
He's just for a runner. He's a big dude, solid dude. Um, and so prior to that, John always like he really admired Jim Finlayson, who was, one of the prior world record holders at the time. And he just really like prior the Beast running sub 5, he just really wanted to have some of these kids come down to San Francisco and run some of the beer miles that we were putting on down there. So that was, and then things got really picked up like once 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 sub 5 happened, like so we started, Flow Track wanted to do something. We wanted to work with them, and things kind of fell apart. And we went our separate ways. Um, and so, we just had different visions, and just there's a lot of back and behind the scenes drama that kind of happened there. But you know, like I think we just really, you know, I don't think we were like we're not great marketers, but like I think there was just a love of the sport and the competition that was like, we just wanted to see these events happen more than we really needed to promote a brand or our business or anything like that.
mhm, yeah, and they only did for, like, 3 years anyway, but, I mean, I was like when I was like, "Oh, I was trying to get into that meet because like, that was, like, the first highlighted thing, and then I heard about
Yep.
this World Classic, um, but
Well,
I
yeah,
was
we started going after it around the same time. Like, they brought me in as I had been putting on events and like I was in between work and I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I said, but I was like, I really thought that, JT Service, who's like, he runs Soul Focus running would have been great for it, but he was too busy. So they got me. And so, and I was more of I was kind of a good person for it in the sense that I'd done a lot of community events, started things up from scratch and with really low budgets and things like that. So, um, when JT came in and helped, I mean, we like that first year, I was in rural, way over our head. We'd lost our permits and we were trying to, we were bringing people in from all over and, we were trying to comply with everything that the city was asking us to do because no one had seen an event like this before, so it's not uncommon, especially in those first years that, you know, permits would be tentatively approved and then pulled at the last minute because
Mhm.
someone would get wind of it that there's alcohol and they're like, but in my city, and it would just take like just one person in city council or in the parks department or whatever to just say no. So that was the challenge early on for
Yeah,
us.
and that was, like, the challenge this year in, Netherlands, correct?
Yeah, yeah, because they had a history of putting them on, like, just public beer miles, and then I think this was just a little bit bigger, and they got cold feet, and I think like we went to London early on because one, it was an opportunity to kind of grow the sport a little. Also, from a permitting standpoint, we could get a track, and without, the first year we did it in Treasure Island, we weren't on a track, but we felt it was really important to have it on the track for record keeping, and you know,
Mhm.
just for if we wanted to say it was a world record, we weren't dependent upon a wheel measurement where you're like, was it a record? So
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we were just I stay in contact with Will and Joe, we do a group message, and after
yeah,
learning about the poll of the Netherlands, Will does make it he made a good point. It's like, it's interesting how, like, you know, they allow, like, sports fans to, like, get drunk, but no beer mile, and it's a good point because I feel like they allow people, like, they're afraid of, like, the beer mile event and an alcohol event, but you think it's kinda, like, hypocritical and ironic they let, like, soccer fans drink, which they can be chaotic, or,
yeah.
football fans drinking, and then beer mile, no way, but I feel like we're overall a little bit more responsible than the
We
typical.
can be, and it depends on I think, we're really responsible in the World Classic, making sure people get out of control or sending them back to the hotel if they're looking a little bit too loose, or you know,
Yeah,
it's just looking at it from like a bartender's point of view. We just try to make sure you guys don't get overserved and know, uh, and it you just there has to be like a little bit of a cooling down period after the race because if you keep
yeah,
going, then it's going to get really loose. So, we're trying to institute more of those cooling down periods, a little bit, and food after,
mhm,
so like because our responsibility to you and all the athletes is making sure you're safe, and that's first things first. That's the most basic requirement, and then after that, it's uh just making sure you have a good time. But just we always ask the athletes to look after each other because we can't be everywhere. We know that
yeah,
once we go out or go to the after party or you guys go off different ways, you're adults and you're on your own. So but we can only do so much at the meet, and then afterwards, it's just um, for the good of the sport, just making sure that you're responsible and your peers are responsible as well.
yep, I agree with that, but, yeah, it's just, like, interesting because, obviously the beer mile's gotten bigger, but I think it's still kinda like that underground sport. You feel like you gotta have to kinda hide. I always feel self-conscious to try to do it at the local high school tracks 'cause I wouldn't dare to do
Yeah,
that.
and I
I
don't
feel
I don't
like
think that's gonna change,
yeah,
anytime you have beer around, like, at a high
yeah,
school or something, and that was challenging getting, just getting a site is because most tracks are at a college or a high school, right? And so
mhm,
in the US at least. So they'll have alcohol provisions there, or they won't want something like a beer mile associated with their school, and so that's what makes it challenging to put these things on publicly. So,
yeah,
yeah, and so I don't mind that it's still underground. I don't think the beer mile needs to be, like, the biggest thing,
yeah,
we don't have to market it like track. We don't have to be like track. I don't think we should be like try to be like track at all. We just have to be, we have to have our own culture, and
Mhm.
like it'll attract. It's not for everyone, and that's fine. I
Yeah,
don't have a problem with that. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, kinda like I thought about this, like, a lot in terms of, like, obviously the beer mile is kinda like the outlier of, like, that track and field world and, maybe I think every time I talk to people, they're very interested, but I feel like there's a few people I've talked to and they just seem, like, weirded out by it, even though they're
yeah.
probably, like, big athletes or like a normal track and field athlete. And I kind of feel like in terms of like compared to other sports, track and field is kind of like more of that cleaner sport, no association with like alcohol. As you see other sports, what do you see for sponsorship? Alcohol. But when you see like USA track and field and all that, there's no like alcohol sponsorship. So like the beer mile is kind of like that.
There is
Uh,
Michelob Ultra. I've seen has come in. Um, when I started as like a local race producer, um, like this was in 2004 or five, and we had beer. We had a run. We had our like my first race was like it was called Running of the Bulls, and we would have like because we had so many great athletes, like uh, you know, we wanted a way to highlight how fast they were, and so we would taking a step back, Beta Breakers has this 13 person of kind of side event called the Centipede, where 13 people are kind of like tethered together and you race, right? And one person has like tentacles, and then there's a tail at the end, and you race these other centipedes. And so we kind of cut that down. We made like for Running of the Bulls, we made a bull like a 3 person centipede, like, and so that was a bull, and we gave people like a head start. And like it was guys that had just come off like Stanford's winning cross country team, and we're like, and they're like they're gonna, the first year they just blew people blew through people so fast. It was like they'd they'd catch people in the first mile. And they'd be like, oh, it was just it just deflated. It just deflated, these average runners. So I mean, like we made our point. These guys are fast, or like because you don't really, when you run a race, the elites take off, and you don't necessarily see them unless it's looking out and back. And so this was a way for for them to kind of interact with it. So in future year, we did it for like 10 years. In future years, that we slowed them down. But so that was the race, and we got a grant one year, and we did a finish line where we got the bar wanted to sponsor it, and so like there was this local bar in Stanford, so we had to run from the finish line to the bar, and like there were all these branded pint glasses that were set up for the runner, and so like and it got a lot of attention. It was like I got quoted on like Let's Run, and then I got a lot of abuse for that, like and they're like, oh, you have to get rid, like um, you know, Vin Lanana and Gags, who were the coaches of the farm team, were like, you got to, we can't have our athletes involved with this. And I was like, I literally sent you an email for the last 6 months that this was happening. This is, and like Nike hasn't given me any money for this. So we're going to keep it. And, we held our ground, but but anyway, that just highlights how alcohol was kind of seen back then. Even just having beer after a race
yeah.
associated with elite athletes was considered like, oh my God, like, you're destroying the sport.
Yeah.
So
You'll see it's like, but you'll see like trend of road races doing like run and beer because there was one in Southern New Hampshire. Smotty Nose hosts a 5K. You get 2 free beer tickets afterwards. I mean,
yeah, but that's
you'll
after,
see,
right?
yeah, that's after. I mean,
Yeah.
and you'll see it at like some half marathons and because they usually get sponsored by a brewery or something like that. Breweries, get involved in like local 5Ks or half marathons,
As
and you'll
as they
see
should.
that.
Yeah, I think it's great. There's a like when you kind of move on from your competitive life, the social part of running, I found to be like the thing that keeps me going is just, wanting to have a beer with my friends after a run. It's not
Yep.
really trying to, like I don't care about competing anymore for my, my own personal self, but like it's great. It's a great thing to combine 2 beers after a run, and a bar is like the perfect sponsor for a race, I believe. So.
Yep. No,
Well, thank
I
you.
do like that feel of it because there's, especially well, this one we do, like, with friends. It's like a community 5K series up in, like,
Mhm.
and then it's different location every Friday in each, like, different town in, like, the northeastern part of Vermont. It's called, like, Run the North by the Northern border running club, and but
Mhm.
even though it's not like an alcohol event, like somehow like we made a tradition to like run a 5K and then go out to eat and have some beers afterwards and
Yeah,
someone local
that's
nearby.
great.
But there's something, no matter how good or bad you did, it's just like was a great social thing. Like even if it's not like
Mhm.
an alcohol event, it's just like, brings that kind of tradition and you look forward to doing it. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
very important to have
'cause
that
like,
social time.
'cause I think I ran my first road race in 1984. It used to be like $5 and you got a T-shirt, and, when I started doing it, like, things started getting, you know, the expectations of what you needed to provide to have a good event, or we kept getting more and more. I got in a big argument with the people I was producing with about medals for everyone. I'm like, this is a 5K, like, come on. But people want that memento for whatever reason, and I don't. It's against every I don't like that. I don't know. I don't like, but I can see it for like the marathon. I definitely see for the longer events, but for like fun runs and things like that, it creates a lot more waste, and like a lot more of an environmental footprint too, just to create all these extra things. And so when you look at the World Classic, it's pretty scaled down. We don't even print individual awards. You get your name on the cup, and that's kind of like the highest thing that you can, if you want to be a great beer miler in this world, just getting on the cup's pretty, I feel is the, like intrinsic um thing that you're trying to achieve, just trying to, establish yourself. It's not in, the awards and things that, mementos that we give out. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We try to keep things pretty simple on the World Classic side. But you know, and road racing just got out of hand with all of the merchandising stuff like that, and then suddenly you have like a $100 5K to sign up for, and
Yeah.
that's crazy to me.
I mean, I feel like a lot of trophies and medals, they just collect dust anyway. And,
Yeah,
as you like grow older, and obviously like growing up as a kid, like trophies seem cool and all that. But when you grow older, it just doesn't seem to matter. It's just about the performance or just about the
yeah,
experience more so than the
yeah,
trophy. So I don't
and the
really
people
care
that
less about
and
getting those anymore.
yeah, right, and your teammates and the people that you kind of hang out with, like the all those other things they're extraneous in a lot of ways. But I don't know, like I guess like I'm a minimalist, and it kind of showed,
Mm.
it shows up in some places in the World Classic where I just try to, it's about the racing and it's about the people, and everything else is just kind of extra, and we have to be able to manage these meets with just a skeleton crew. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important. But yeah, I can understand like in the younger generation, earning that blue ribbon is just of
Mhm.
course you're a kid.
Oh,
It's extraordinary. But
I do think for kids it's great.
yeah,
Like I think
yeah.
like it keeps. I think if it can keep people in the sport or striving for something, like I remember I got like a lot of ribbons when I was in fifth or sixth grade, and I always wanted to get a medal because that seemed like a bigger deal than a
Hmm.
ribbon, and so like I finally got a medal, and that was great. And so yeah, I think for younger kids, it's important to have some kind of something to strive for, something tangible like you can touch. So
Yeah.
I don't
But then you
disagree with
grow
you there.
older, it just doesn't seem to matter as much. Just more like they care about more about performance and that's it. It's like if I just get first place prize, I don't need a ribbon or a trophy to simulate them.
Right.
You know, it's on the results.
Right.
It's
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we can get like, when you're post collegiate, you're chasing like the US standard or, the US trial standard, and you get so focused on time that it doesn't, that the place sometimes it doesn't even matter at the time, if the time, if you don't hit your time. And so it, that I think like when I stepped away and didn't have to chase time anymore, I enjoyed the sport a lot more. And I said, I know you coach. I coached like junior high, and I coached charity teams, and that really changed my perspective, and really like I was kind of burned out after racing for I don't know, like 20 something years, like where, every race was like an all out effort. Um, it was just nice to see like newcomers or people coming into the sport and just experiencing it for the first time. And I was like, wow, like these people are Like he said, these guys that are trying to just run their first half marathon. I'm like, they're not good runners, but they are enjoying running a lot more than I have been. And so there's something to learn from that.
Yeah. I mean, I've helped coach, like, middle school and all that, and I think, like, obviously, the goals in different age groups, like, differ, but, like, at the end of the day, it's like, if middle you can't be specific with, like, the younger kids, it's just about them just getting out and just doing
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
And as they grow older, obviously, if they, become, more talented and you get a little bit more specific, but at the end of the day, it's just like they're here, putting in the work and they're enjoying it. Why try to like put so much on them to ruin that
Yeah.
joy? You know what I mean, obviously, you got to train people, and there's athletes who are motivated to run fast, and you want to train them and help them, get to that
Yeah.
point. And everyone's different in some points, but just being on the team and taking part and participating and
Yeah.
improving yourself is the most kind of like very important because they're actually doing something and not like going off and getting in trouble or hopefully not doing drugs or stuff like that, or
Yeah.
just not utilizing their time well outside of school or
Yeah. It's harder with like all the screens and stuff now too. I think I would have been really distracted by that if I was growing up now. And so I was lucky just to kind of, I was in my own head for so much of my childhood, and and even though and then that bled out into runs where I would just like think. And even to this day, I don't take media with me on runs, and like raw dog it, so to speak, as the kids would say. On just I don't wear a watch anymore. I don't I just go out and I run.
yeah,
And I think there's so much data out there, and like I think you can get lost in that or overly obsessed with it. Whether it's Strava or other things. But again, I think I'm just like a minimalist in that sense, where like now I just want to go out and run, and like if I want to run a little bit harder, I will.
mhm,
But I'm off the watch now, so to speak. I'm off the clock. So
yeah. I still use a watch for like workouts and stuff, but I don't use Strava at all. And people try like,
yeah,
you should be on Strava, like, and I used to ask them why. It's like, why do I need to do that? Like, you can post runs and you can share. Like, no, I don't need to do that. I'm not trying to
yeah,
say I'm like too good for it. I'm just like, I just don't see the point. I don't feel like I need to do that. I do have like
mhm.
Garmin Connect, and it's sometimes fun to like post it, but I don't share with anybody. I just post it and see
Yeah. Well, I mean, if
about
you're really
one.
trying to
But
get analytic, I
yeah,
think I see that as valuable if you're still training and you're trying to get analytics on, or insight into your runs, or what's going on. I get that. Yeah. So just not
yeah.
I'm not there.
But I don't feel like sharing my work with people all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're either I'm not an overshare. Like
Mhm.
I'd say I don't think I've posted anything on social media in years. So it's, like I like kind of doing something like this where I can talk and have a conversation. But
Yeah,
it's like, taking sharing everything with the world's just not my, I don't know. Uh I've gotten more private over the years. I think when social media came out, I think like everyone, like kind of my age, we were like, oh, we're going to put all this out there, and I think a lot of people are coming, just taking a step back from that, putting everything out there.
yeah. But with the younger generation, it's just like it's nothing but like like that's all they're consumed because that's what they grew up with. Because like at least
Yeah.
with me, like I was still young enough where you didn't have the iPhones, like you still had like the flip phones growing up, and then it kind of transitioned to that. But I mean, good
Yeah.
thing me, like, I was one of those guys that hold dear to stuff. Like, I had a flip phone
Yeah.
for over 10 years before
Yeah. Yeah. I
getting
wasn't
back
the
on this
last.
one
Yeah.
and this is 8 years with this
Oh,
phone.
wow.
This is my 2nd phone ever, and
My phones break all the time. Like I get one every year or two. I get cheap phones, and like it's usually like just plug in, stops working. I can't charge it anymore. And so but yeah, Todd Rose is he's a beer miler. He has the over 50 record. He was like one of the last ones to leave it. And then when he went to like a smartphone, it was like, oh man, it's an end of an era. Like so
oh, yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
met him briefly. He seemed like a good guy.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, yeah. He's great runner, great masters runner. Um, like one of the early beer, he was a, you know, um, like a 540, 550 beer milers like 20 years ago when, that was, tops, there weren't many people running under 6 minutes back then.
Yeah.
So, and he was doing it with cans and, just hadn't learned any of the techniques. And I think he ran in the 540s as a 50-year-old. So the bottles are better and he learned all the tricks. So.
Whew. Damn. But yeah, but it's great to also get even the masters in. Do you think like Corey would like to join back in for masters or?
Corey Gallagher, or
Yeah, Corey Gallagher.
no, he's going to be officiating. So,
Ah, okay. No,
Gallagher's like, you know, when you think about all there were the original rules, and then when Flow Track came about, like Gallagher was really, Gallagher and Lewis Kent and Jim Finlayson, the Canadian guys, were really instrumental in getting the secondary set of rules kind of in place. And then after doing the World Classic, learned all the new sets of tricks people were learning to get around the rules that they were set. But Corey had thought about all the things, and so he had tried. He was like, when you think about like just innovators in the beer mile, like that dude just tried and tested like every way to get faster. Like, I mean, he was just like a kind of a scientist in that sense. And
yeah,
that's why it's great to have him on the officiating team, because he knows he can smell things out. Even though I've like done officiating a lot of these, like I trust his judgment more than mine on
yeah,
it. And if I had a tough call, he'd be the first person I would ask.
yeah. I mean, because I think it was like mentioned he was trying to be a loophole guy when he was competing, and then he was saying, "If you're not cheating, you're not trying." Someone said that about him, and
Yeah, I mean, totally. And so he's, he would try to find those things, just if it wasn't written, there wasn't something in the rule book that specifically stated it. Like, I think or, like little things like one of the reasons we ask you guys to put your bottles facing up was like a lot of guys were just dumping them straight
yeah,
down and trying to find that. And so that kind of goes against the spirit. And so we had to, kind of put something in for that because a lot of people were doing it. So, and it makes
yeah,
sense. Like if you
yeah,
can, if you're not sure back then, like in the early days, um, like people weren't as um, really vigilant on their beers. So like they might get a little warmer, and like if a warm beer is gonna, you can do everything right in your beer mile, but you're gonna have more foam. That foam's gonna become, you know, when we pour it in the cup, it's gonna come back. So that like you wouldn't necessarily, you would drink your beers, but you wouldn't necessarily know how much was left in there. Especially in a can. So like they would try those little loopholes to get through it. I
mm,
get it. If that makes sense. But now I think we have, we used to say that you're responsible for your own beers, but we're taking control of the beers and keeping them, in, you know, as cold as we can. And once we take them from you, it's like our responsibility to keep them cold up until like 10 or 15 minutes before the
yeah,
race. So yeah, but getting back to Gallagher, yeah, you know, um, he just he knew every trick. And like we had an incident years ago, like um in, I think this was in Vancouver, one of the
yeah.
Canadians.
You told me
Yeah.
that when you first,
Yeah, that was really disappointing.
yeah,
That was really disappointing. And that was someone Corey knew. And so if for anyone who tunes into this, it's just someone replaced their beer with water, and once when we got to the measuring, it was all clear, and it was obviously water. So the beer had been replaced with water. And so yeah, Corey took that kind of hard because it was someone he knew. But we found like maybe if was one beer, he may have gotten away with it, but with four beers and like you know a clear
but
cup.
did he just like complete water or did he like mix it?
Oh yeah.
Clear water.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's
Was it
stupid.
like obviously wasn't a clear bottle. It was like, was it out of can or a kind
I
of a
think it was
out bottle?
kokanee or something. It was like one of those, um, you know, like brand that I'm not that familiar with, but you got to pick your own, and you know, just he he tampered with it. So
Jesus.
so that's why like now we just always open, we ask you to bring an extra beer and we'll randomly sample just yeah, just to
Yeah.
make sure that because you can, if you let the carbonation out affect your beer, and that'll, like if it's a non-carbonated beer, it's just like drinking water in a sense. So yeah,
Mhm.
we'd see that. I mean, you could punch like a pinprick into the top of a can. Will let out that carbonation too. So, so we had cans, or when people would race with cans more, if you opened it, it would go. You know, you knew that it was tampered with. So
Oh, yeah, because you don't hear the noise when you
right,
yeah.
and to a certain extent, it has to be an honor system. We're not going to catch everything that happens.
Mm.
Out on the out there, when everyone's chugging really fast, making sure that they're not just spilling it on their chest and stuff like that. We'll give a warning for that for the first time, but if it keeps happening, then, we gotta, we'll pull a red card on that. But, the nature of the sport is that we're not going to catch every single infraction or minor infraction. And there's a little bit of wiggle room for folks because we don't want to disqualify everyone. That's not the goal. But, at the front end, though, I will say that we expect, if someone's setting a world record, that world record has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like there's no, so like when Liz stepped out of the chug zone in Belgium, uh, we had to like we had to pull the red card on that because it's a slippery slope when you start getting outside of the chug zone, and you like the rules start getting bent like that. Like when Corey had a 424 and he was a half ounce over, and it's like, well, that was, and the reason that he was a half ounce over is one of the beers fell off the table and it foamed. So he probably, we picked it up, but I think most of the excess came from that last beer that fell over before,
Oh,
and a half ounce is nothing really. Like, I mean, so if that
yeah.
little bit of foam, you know, the world record could be at like 424, but I guess on the other side, he's just been taking it down and getting closer and closer to that. But when he ran that 424, he was in the prime of his athletic career, and it was like nothing we had ever seen. And it was just disappointing that we didn't, get to really truly enjoy that performance.
Yeah, and that was the same year of the guy trying to tamper with beer, correct?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
and
Yeah.
then the same year where um, the facility got pulled because they were
Uh-huh.
trying to
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, that was a challenging year, and we had a very small women's field, and we disqualified two-thirds of them. And, uh, you know, the, yeah, I don't even, that one was, yeah, just a really weird year, you know.
yeah,
It was the fastest men's race and probably the slowest women's race that we had. So,
God, just imagine though, but you still pulled it off the best you could.
I mean, it's gonna, yeah, we do the best that we can, and I think we have to just be open to like some ambiguity where we have to maybe just like go somewhere secret, or just you know like until the things start. I'm always like, is something gonna happen where someone gets mad, or someone at the in Europe we usually don't have that problem because it's been private. In Cologne it's going to be a private facility, so we don't anticipate any problems there. But anytime you have a city permit, for aspiring producers of beer milers, there's always a chance that um, the city may take a dim view of the event and not let you do it. So, and I
Yeah,
hope that doesn't happen in St. Louis, but we have a backup plan. So,
that's good, but I think it'll go well in general. I mean, uh, like Will's part of it, and like JC, they both
their team down there is great, and
yeah,
like I have full trust. We'll have we have a good timer. We have a production company. And it's not just me, John, and Travis. Like putting up scrim the day before, like we do at the World Classic, and you know, so it. I think the really challenging part is that men, women, and masters are all going to be starting. Are going to have a common finish line, but separate start times with different time handicaps. So that's going to be challenging because like the top women will be coming into the second chug zone right at the start of the men's race. So we just, like we have to get a better feel of the spacing of that starting line and where we're going to have, we have to have the women go far to their right, away from where you guys will be heading out on your chug. Because that not that I think there's only like probably 5 or 6 women is our anticipated women's field side. So we just need to make sure that that initial start and second chug or uh people aren't running into each other, especially when they're looking into their beers or looking for their beers. So
Uh,
we got that's what we have to figure out and just like other than that, and then it's just I'm kind of curious to see, I think, how you know like the race between like Corey and Liz and Melanie will kind of unfold, like he's gonna start a minute and a half behind, which is exactly the amount that Liz, that was the difference between his time and Liz's time in Lisbon. So that'll be it. So if they're both flat out and in the same shape that they were, it's going to be really close. So in an ideal world, it's coming down to the last 20 meters. And I think Melanie Posdal just ran so hard her first lap that, like she ran like 6:17 or 6:18 right in that area. I mean, I think she could have been right in that 6 minute area as well. So that'll be interesting. And I think, uh, and then like just sorting out who's going to be making these national teams is going to be really interesting as well.
yep. And you want like the qualification is like top 3 and then for like the A team or top 4?
Yeah, I I think we have to give a little bit of wiggle room to the national teams because someone who's going to be really fit might not be able to make it. So
Yeah.
they get to pick 1 or 2 people. So you can line up 4 or 5 at the championship race, and then the B teams just if you want to go and compete, there's a there's we really encourage that, like, because I think racing those races just help you become a better beer miler. So the like a lot of our future. We had a lot of people start in the B races and end up in podium. So like in 2015, like the B race was Brandon Shirk was in the B race, who had the world record. Garrett Collin, who had the American record. Todd Rose was in that B race, and so it's it's a great place for people to kind of make their mark. Or, uh, every world championships where we've had 2 sections has had like a top 6 or 7 finisher from the B section. Someone just runs well. So
Yeah. Like,
the B section's a great race.
like Tom from Belgium, he ran like about 5:05 last year,
Yeah,
and
Bud
then Bud
Lightning.
Lightning 5 flat in 2023.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So it's there, and so I always say it's not a tragedy to if you're on the edge of the A section, you might be better off. Like if you're like the 14th or 15th runner, or seat time, or sixth person from your country. The B section's like a hot race. Like you'll have a little bit more space to race and run your own race. So in some ways, it's not the worst thing in the world. And
Yep.
like, and you can come to me after and say I should have been in the race. I'm like, yeah, you should have. Like, but then we keep that in mind for future years.
Yeah. Yep, and you have all the space and not the chaotic if you're up in front, you're not picking up the beers around people and
Well, yeah, and like your race last year was kind of like there was a lot of people around you, and I think Chris Russell knocked came into your opener hand, knocked out your
did
bottom
it?
opener.
I think I just dropped it.
Really? What
No, because what happened was I from what I remember from that chug where I supposedly dropped it, I
did you
grabbed
watch
it.
the film?
I did watch the film, but I didn't quite, I don't know how he would knock it out because he was, like, coming, like,
Okay.
behind
It
me.
looked to me that he was coming behind you, and it wasn't intentional. He was,
I know, no,
you
no.
know.
But I kinda felt like what happened was I'll rewatch it maybe, but I don't feel like someone knocked my hand.
No, 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 no. But I think there was a bump. I think you got bumped.
I'll see. I'll rewatch it, but from what
Let
I
me
can
know. Yeah,
remember
text me on
was
that and see because like I watched it and I was like, oh, I think like Chris came in while you were opening, and it just that's why it flew. But maybe
from
I'm
what
seeing it wrong.
I'll rewatch it just to see, but, from what I can remember was going up to that chug, I remember someone stepping on the back of my spike and it almost popped off, but luckily popped back in. Then I missed
Yeah.
the first swipe, and then I clicked
Oh,
it, and then I don't know if I just, like, simultaneously just, like, without realizing it, just dropped it like this, and then
yeah.
went off, didn't realize I did it, and
Oh,
then I
okay.
got to the 3rd beer and then realized I didn't have it in my hand, and I looked
Yeah.
toward you like, and luckily, like, either Corey pointed out or one of the officials pointed out it was, like, right there. It
Yeah.
was it was, like, closer to the, like, end of the chug zone, so I had to probably
Yeah.
drop it right after I finished chugging it, so
I, it was a panic for like, because you know how you're seeing a disaster happen in real time? You're like, I don't know, I'm like, something happened. I don't know what's going on. He doesn't have his, he doesn't have his bottle opener, and there was nothing I could do to help you. Because
you
I
know?
had no idea what happened or where it could have gone. I just knew you were fucked. So, like,
But no, luckily, someone pointed it out and, like and I was able to finish, thank god, and still ran a
yeah,
decent time, but it
yeah,
was definitely would have been for certain top 5,
right.
because it was like a
Well,
nice, like yeah, 9 seconds of, like, from realizing I lost it to picking it up. It was about 9 seconds of lapse time.
yeah, yeah, and like, one time we, at Penn Relays, our team dropped, our distance medley team dropped the baton, and, you know, it went backwards. Like, it was like on the turn, and so the 400 he had to instead of running like 46, he ran like 52 or 53, so that meant our 800 guy, like, just had to take went out too hard, and then our miler went out too it was just, those so sometimes those things, like, there's the actual time loss, and then there's, like, the reaction to everything,
Mm,
to kinda make up for that, and that's you know, it can be even more than that, so
yeah, but I'm just gonna tape it next time. Because
yeah, I think that's, like, something,
like
like, that's an experience thing that I think
yeah,
everyone should, you know, keep in mind, um, because you can it could happen to anyone, so
yeah, but I think it'll be smart because, like I said, like, people's like, "How did you do that?" Like, "How did you not realize you dropped it?" Like, it's I'm in my own head right now, like, kinda like, when I remember in Windsor holding the ball no more, I don't even realize I'm holding a bottle opener half the time. I just don't
yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
come on it.
That's
Yeah,
kinda like, what they say, like, when you're in the zone, like, you're
yeah,
so into what you're doing. That's like a beautiful place, right? Like, you wanna be that's where you wanna be, and, you get very few times in your life where you're just in the moment, and so, like, I don't know, you gotta enjoy like, you'll chase trying to get back into that moment, but, like, the rest of your life, when you think about your great races and those moments where everything just it's like a flow state,
yeah.
and so you were in one of those until you dropped your you know,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
that's
lesson learned, but, I mean, obviously, it was, like, disappointing, but didn't let it ruin my weekend just because, like I said, it was just fun to go and, um but, there's always next year to do better, obviously, and I think,
yeah,
like, turning to the, like, beer miles is kinda like because I was training for, like, half and full marathons, and I think it was just not great for my legs, but training for a beer mile, you don't have to run as much mileage, and it's definitely kept me, like, motivated to, like, train for something and also be in, pretty good shape because doing more strength training, more speed training, and typically
yeah,
that's difficult to do when you're trying to train for half marathons or you're getting older, but trying to, like,
yeah,
stay in that and also, like, give me an excuse to travel because
mhm,
Portugal is the first time I've ever been to Europe. Fun fact.
yeah. Oh, right
Yeah,
on, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would say, like, the travel part, like, for me was really important. So, like, I was in the Air Force, and so they would have, like, world military games, and so right after college, I got to go to Morocco, and then, we ran in, like, cross country in Ireland and, track in, Sicily, and those things were great, just being able to travel with friends, just be in a new place, um, and, uh it's one of the things that we wanted to focus on in the World Classic is, like let's go to places that people want to go, and not not necessarily, the downside of just a traveling circus is that you don't get to build year after year on an event. But the upside is we get to like go to a new place, kind of try to build the beer mile up in these countries, and our folks that are with us for a while get to see the world. So
Yeah. No, agreed, and definitely would be excited for, like, the years to come, and obviously everyone has their, like, preferences or what would they like to see where the beer mile goes. What would you say is you the most ideal spot you would like to have the beer mile World Classic be at?
oh God. I mean, we've always wanted to do one in Australia. If costs weren't a thing, so we know that like just it's easier for us to like, and it's unfair to the Australians to bring the Australians to Europe than it is to bring everyone to Australia. From a cost perspective, we just it's just I think it'd be really difficult for us to actually pull that off with the budget that we have. But Australia would be amazing if we ever got to do one over there. That would be amazing. Uh, we have a couple bids next year for like Copenhagen and Oslo, which I think like that would be great. Uh, the Croatians, would love to do one in I don't know what it's a smaller city. It's not Zagreb, but um, that would be that would be kind of cool because we haven't been to that far east in Europe. So
Mm,
um, and I mean, I think there's so many great places in the world that if we went to any of those places, I think we'd make sure to have a good time. And I think as much as the location's important too, I think for John and I, it's almost like it's our family, and we like just having all the kids together and you know, back with us, and seeing like
yeah,
familiar faces. So I think it's as much about the people as it is the location, but the location has to be interesting enough to make
yeah.
people want to come back. So
I mean, there's gotta be a lot of stuff to do. You can't have it, like, in a very small town where there's not much and to go around, and no, it's gotta be
well, plus like we want to limit the amount of steps, like we want to be close to the airport so that you're not taking a plane and a train and then,
yeah,
like an Uber. We want to be, if we can, be close to the track, although that's not always that's the smallest of the problems because like $20 Uber can solve that to get to the track, so but like in Manchester we had everything within, like once you got to the hotel and the track were right next to each other. Like, you could walk like across the parking lot and you were there, and so you could shower up, and then it took a little bit of effort to get into, like it took a little effort to get into town, but from the meat perspective everything was close by. Um, so yeah, so the things that we look for are just like we don't want to make the logistics for athletes any harder than it has to be. It's just get to the hotel, and be able to get out, or go to the next. If you want to add, if you want to go somewhere before or after, just be able to go on get to the airport and go to the next part of your trip.
yep, it's all
Or
about
are you going to go? Are you if in Cologne? Are you going to go anywhere after?
what, like, after the Cologne race?
Yeah.
Like, any more race plans or
No, no. I mean, like just like Oktoberfest starts the day of the beer mile, and
no, well, right now I'm trying to work out because the event is held during typically because I coach at 2 different schools, like, one for cross
mhm,
country and then
mhm,
one for high school, which is my old high school, and they're, like, 10
yeah.
minutes apart, but I coach at a different school for cross country, and we typically host a cross country invitational on that weekend, so I wanna try to, like,
Uh-oh.
see if we can move that and maybe in October, or I can just, like, say I have this race,
Yeah,
weekend,
yeah.
so I'm definitely
That's
gonna try
that
to make it work, so
that's hard, like, because when you're on a high school staff, you're carrying, like, the load of all the administrative stuff of the event and the organization, and then if you go away, you know,
yeah.
it falls on someone else, so
Well, typically, I have huge help with, like, the co-coach and the athletic director,
yeah,
but
there you
we'll
go.
s I'll see if, we can get moved because I do wanna help out with it because kinda helped
Yeah.
start the meet a few years ago at,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
different course, so, but when you laid out all the dates, I'm like, "Oh, just don't pick the 19th, don't pick the 19th," and
Yeah.
so
There's
yeah, I know
so
it's gotta play into, like, what has to work best for in general for everybody, so or
I will
most of
say, like,
everybody.
when we Shelby Houlihan's gonna run now. We just got confirmation on that.
Oh,
She wasn't she wa in Eindhoven, she had to go back for a wedding or something. So by moving it to the 18th, she's able to compete. She wouldn't have been able to do it and in the Netherlands if we had done it there.
yeah.
So that's a little bit of breaking news.
Oh, why would she not be able to do it in the Netherlands?
Because she had a wedding that weekend on a Saturday or Sunday, so she has to get back to Portland
Oh, she's
that
gonna
weekend.
leave, like,
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
right
Yeah,
off
so
the
she
bat.
wouldn't have been able to yeah, so that was the issue.
Oh, wow, that's gonna be
That extra
I mean,
day
I
was
guess I could do the
just
same thing, but I don't feel it.
no, dude, you're making all that effort to,
Yeah,
like, I think sometimes, like, you have to be able to let some things go, and, like, put your put the people that you trust in charge while you're gone for this one time, and just, like, just have to like, sometimes it's hard to do that, but you can do that, you know, and
yeah,
then, like, so you would give the same grace to, like, if you had a key person on your staff that had something like this come up, like, they're like, "I have this chance to go to Europe." You'd be like, "Go, we got you,"
yeah,
so
yeah. Well, I'll see if
just
we can get it moved, though. Let's see. I mean,
yeah.
and then we don't have to but, yeah, I probably won't stay too long because 'cause I've gotta get back to coaching.
Well, anyone who's in, like, a teaching profession,
Yeah,
is, September is hard, the summer's hard for, like, some of the elite athletes if they're still racing, it's like someone like Shelby, we couldn't have, had her if it was in a month earlier, a couple weeks earlier, she'd still be racing, so
yeah,
it's just but I like the fall ones because it's a little bit cooler, especially, like, in that part of the world, it's so nice. It's chill, and, like, like, Western Europe in September in the fall, it's great, you know? It's not as
yep,
not as nice as Pittsburgh in October, but, it's pretty cool.
yep. I mean, Vermont's pretty good up in the fall, but
Yeah, oh, yeah,
early
yeah,
June.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, having I left Pennsylvania for roughly 30 years, maybe even a little more. And I just missed fall. Like,
um,
I just love it, you know? And I really forgot how much I hate summer and the humid summers in Pittsburgh. Like,
yeah,
I was like, "Oh, yeah, there's that too." I forgot about, but the falls make it worth it. A crisp
yeah.
day, just the smell. So,
No, there's something about, like, obviously people wanna come up and see the foliage, but and it's, like, perfect running temperature, typically, like, not too hot, not too cold on average, and but
mhm,
there's dopamine hit when you, like for example, like, I look back training for one of my half marathons, and almost every single long run I went on was just a beautiful sunny day, I was like, "God, this is great." I don't know.
yeah,
Those little things that,
yeah.
yeah, just point out is just like yeah, that's like it just definitely feels, like, good when you look back on it for some reason.
There's things that I think, like, in running, like, that are seasonally related that are all processed like like a dog, like, it's all through my nose. Like, I'll get a smell and it'll bring me back to, like, being, like, 12 and, lining
Yeah.
up for a cross country race or something, Like, I don't know, it's just the nostalgia and, it just hits you never know when it's gonna hit you, and when it does, it's just like, "Oh, yeah, man, I remember."
Yeah,
So
like, when the whiff of, I don't know, sometimes when I go I mean, of course, I've been to a lot of tracks often, but, like, sometimes I go remember as a competitor, you smell the turf of the track, and then
yep,
you
yep, yep,
smell as a coach, and you're kinda remembering some reason, like, the feelings of the like, what you were feeling on, like, race day as an athlete, and you just some reason, it just
yeah.
those memories just kinda click in my head just a little bit, even though I've experienced it, you know,
Or,
as
like,
years ago.
when you go, like, in junior high, what there was like, in the '80s, there was Ben Gay everywhere, and it just you'd go into your locker room, and it would just smell like that. You know what Ben Gay is? It's a rub that you put on. It's, like, for muscle soreness.
Is it
If
what it does it smell like kinda like Aussie peppermint or icy hot or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah, and you would just go in and but, like, just being like, you know, preteen kid, everyone would just slather it on it, and so, like, I came into a locker like, and I hadn't smelled that in a while, like, I mean, like, you don't even know what it is, right? And so when I went into a locker room and I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, this is what" it was kinda dank, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is like being in 7th grade," and, just getting ready for gym class. So, like, all those, weird, yeah, smells or things that bring me back to, like, the competitive days and just like I don't know, I still remember racing too and like just in my head and as slow as I'm running now, in my head I'm still fast, so
Yeah. No, I think that's important. Just like as time goes on, we all wish we can still be competitive, but sometimes age will just not allow. But it's just about, like I said, not just like in terms of like the youth keep on moving, but the elderly just to keep on moving.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like I try to do like, you know, um like my partner Courtney was like, do you want to race again? And I was like, well, I do wanna race again, I just don't wanna put in the effort, to how to do it the way I'd like to do it and, just have to, like, really commit. Like, because I spent so much time doing that, that not having that, you know, not having to be always preparing for something is meaningful to me, but also just not getting injured and not being able like, I had a couple year segment where I couldn't really run at all, and so risking just being able to go out 4 times a week, 5, 6 miles to race a little bit the risk reward isn't there, so you just kind of have to weigh that. And I think, there may be a point where I can't run anymore and, I'd have to accept that and just find something new. So I'm trying to extend that as long as I can.
Yeah. I mean, like, and also like, you know, also trying to enjoy it in terms of like, for example, when I was like training for my last a marathon I trained for, it was like, and I trained for it, um, well, like it was doing 100-mile weeks, but I just kind of found it more like tasking, like just more burnout. And, I was running with my brother who was also training for it, but he will sometimes be inconsistent with his training because he'll like have a long work day, have a
Mhm.
hard time to fitting it all in. And but we were just talking and like and I'll admit, usually he's like the one that's more burned out. I'm usually like, go, go, go. But for some reason, like that year was or that like spring was a little bit more tasking. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably there was just a lot of like mental stuff going on with me that, year two. But I feel like training and running more and just trying to work full time, coach part time, and then trying to train for a marathon and run high mileage. And I would tell them, I do enjoy getting in shape, but maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little tasking. And then, you don't run well in the marathon, and then it just feels less motivating. And then you run, and then like then I trained for the half marathon, trained pretty well that, and also didn't drink at all for
Mm.
2 months, just, but then I got
Yeah.
sick, ran the worst half marathon that same year. So I was just like, kinda like was a little bit lost in terms of like, where do I wanna go next time in my running career? Because at that time, like, I always had that beer mile world classic in the back of my head, but I kinda
Mhm.
almost kinda gave up on it in a way.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, because my speed's not coming back. But then what really motivated me finally was seeing the, Beer Mile documentary trailer. I guess I got an email notification on
Yeah.
beermile.com, and I clicked on it, and then all of a sudden I was just like, why you just don't train for half and full marathons? Just, you say you have a hard time getting your speed back, but you never really try that hard. Spend more
Yeah.
time on it. You don't have to run more than 60-mile weeks.
Yeah.
You don't have to run twice a day.
Yeah.
You can go up to maybe 14 miles or 12 to 14 for your long run. You don't have to do 20, even though I do enjoy a good 20 plus mile run when you're in shape, but,
Yeah.
um, and you can strength train more. And then it was just like in the beginning of like, and that was like the end of 2023. In the beginning of
Right.
2024, I just started getting on like this regimen where I get up early in the morning and just like exercise or stretch for like 3 hours before I go to work, and I
Yeah.
started doing that whole, Wim Hof breathing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and
Mhm.
cold plunging, like
Huh.
cold showers, and then started getting the cold plunging, and then started doing that after
Yeah.
I work out. But then I now I do it before I work out because I think I heard that was more beneficial. But the Wim Hof,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you heard of the guy Wim Hof, but he's just like this. They call him the Iceman, and
Mhm.
he does like a series of like these breathing exercises, and he's known to like go into really cold temperatures, not be affected by it.
Hmm.
Um, for
Yeah.
example, he climbed up to with just a shirt on to the death zone of Mount Everest and back,
Wow.
just to the death zone because obviously he would probably die up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
my girlfriend did Mount Kilimanjaro, and it's like it's no joke, like the altitude. You can't really screw around with altitude at
yeah,
all.
no, and a lot of people do, unfortunately. But we can go talk about that after I finish talking about Wim Hof, where he also
Yeah.
ran a half marathon in the Arctic with no shirt. He might have
Hmm.
got frostbitten on the toe, but I guess that healed itself.
Yeah.
And he did of course, he almost died of doing this. He did, like, the longest, like, ice dive, and he kinda missed the hole because he kinda went, like, blind for a second, and then
Oh no.
luckily he got he got out, but he also has submerged in the longest time in ice without his core temperature changing, and then they infected him with some sort of like, I don't know what kind of virus, and he did, I breathe and he did his, meditation and breathing, and he didn't get
Uh-huh.
sick. And of course, like, maybe he's just an anomaly, but and I even because my older brother told me about this guy, and like, "Are you sure you just guess, like, he's got this certain skill, like, he's just an anomaly? Because there's people out there that can take electricity for some re
Right.
for
Right. Right.
but and he said, "No, well, no, they tested, like, I think, what, 6 people, and they injected that learned his way, his breathing, and they inject them with the same stuff, either you get sick or light symptoms." So I was like, "Oh, alright." So they did some studies on it, but that's kinda like what they do is, like, the breathing, like, for example, you do, like and then you can do it in the different variations. For me, I just do 40 deep breaths, and I do it through the nose now,
Mhm.
and you hold your breath for a series of time, and you can build up an interval. So I do try to do 40 deep breaths, hold your breath for 2 minutes, then
So do you
inhale.
feel like, to bring this back to the beer mile, do you
Mhm.
feel that these breathing exercises are helping you with that?
Um, I don't think so because I think it's just more so because I'm maybe a little bit. I don't feel like it got better. I think it just for really what's helped is like whenever I feel like I'm coming down with a cold, I'm not getting as sick.
Okay.
Like I'm just getting light symptoms or and then obviously I think it helps tolerate the cold a little bit more too.
Yeah.
So I usually do it right before I get in the cold plunge, which is just outside the house in like one of
Mhm.
those. And it's not, some people will build a chest freezer, which my older brother's done, but my parents and I decided, like, how about you just, because there's like this spring that's running through one, like they have pastures for cows
Mhm.
um, and there was, like, this old water tank that hasn't been used, but there's, like, this water
Yeah.
pipe, and so what we did, I bought, one of those stock tanks that you use to put in a pasture so cows can drink out of. So I
Okay.
bought one of those, and we hooked the water line, which is coming out of the ground, so it's gonna be cold, and then hooked
Yeah.
another thing so the water can access into a stream.
Okay.
And then
So it
it's
comes in and out. Okay.
constantly yeah, and turning into summer, it's, like, probably doesn't get any warmer than 55 degrees, and then during the winter, it'll get
Wow.
below 40. So I will just jump in there for 3 to 5 minutes and
Yeah, I did
hopefully
like,
mm,
we used to do that on the farm team. We'd finish our workout and get in the cold tank for a while. Um, and I don't want to do it anymore. I did it in, I was just counting the seconds basically. But yeah, I mean, but I did it more for anti-inflammatory purposes,
yeah,
after. So, um, but yeah, I would get in and then I'd be like just cold the rest of the night, just, just get into my sweats and, try to warm up. There wasn't any like anything else to it other than just,
yeah,
just trying to feel better for the
yeah.
next day.
I usually, like, did because I kinda feels like it helps mellow your brain a little bit because it is, like, the usually the maybe the hardest thing you'll do all day, but then it became routine, then it just became more about like the immune system built and you know all that. But like I found like I said, as that part of my regimen, I just felt like you feel accomplished when you do it,
Mhm.
like because it takes time and commitment. So a lot of like I could have like gave up on it like maybe a few months into it, like "Ah, I don't feel like I can keep up with this, but as long as you they usually say, like, if you stick to a routine for, like, a couple weeks and
Right.
you can build that and obviously, I don't do it every single day. I might have to go off a week, like, for instance, going to the beer mile because I obviously don't do it there.
Yeah. You
But
could probably find something there. You could probably find a cool gym
yeah.
in Germany
But, like,
for
I mean, I don't need to, like, do it every day. Like, I
yeah.
don't want to need religiously. It's just whenever I can. I can fit it in 5, 6 days a week in my normal routine, but
Yeah.
I just found, like, finally,
That's
like
kind of a cool no, I kinda like that it's just upstream coming through your yard, and then,
yeah.
the water goes you're not, capturing the water at all. It's just kinda going on its merry way.
It's like a more, like, natural versus, like, buying, like, all these expensive cold plunges that,
Mhm.
like and obviously, people don't have the luxury to have, like, a water spring go through and
Right.
that, but no, I think also, like, it's just, like, it was a spark of, like, when you start something new and a new routine, you kinda feel like, "Oh, it's something fresh, something new, and,
Yeah.
something exciting," and so I think that's kinda, like, helped me a little bit, and also just training for the beer mile and trying to get my speed back and obviously, like, working towards to get into the 2024 World Classic. Like, that
Yeah.
was that motivation and trying to, like, get down back to my mile time and hadn't probably broken 4:30 or I haven't tried run a mile, but, like, in June, ran, like, a 4:25, which I haven't done that in
Yeah.
years, and so you definitely, like definitely felt better as a runner and obviously, like, I was in good shape training for marathons, but honestly doing more strength training, more speed work, I kind of feel like more, like, in tune with my body and just probably in better shape than I have been in recent years.
Well, when you get when you're doing that longer stuff, just being able to do some, like taking the mile and the beer mile aside, doing strides and some faster stuff that can really help your running economy. Like just to being
Mhm.
able to do strides at the end of your, like if you do a tempo run, um, the that that might be even though it's such a small part of your training, you might get the most benefit out of that by just tapping into your different parts of your running economy you know, throughout your training cycle, not just at the end, not just like tapering off and then trying to, you know, do some faster stuff. So,
Yeah, because I feel like when you just train and, like, just do long stuff or, like, long intervals that you definitely feel like you can't move as quick with that kinda, like, training and definitely feel the effects, like,
well,
after
right. And
each long
with strides at the end, like
yeah.
you can take full recovery, and like just, and just build into it. You don't want to go, do a long, hard workout and then, you know, like just tweak something in the first three steps of your stride, just like build
Yeah.
up, come down, and just, do that a few times. And, um, my ex-wife was a good marathoner, and she could have been probably a better marathoner, and she worked under, like, Jack Daniels, because Jack was one of the coaches at the farm team,
Okay.
and so she'd do, like, the 17, 18-mile tempos at, like, 5:45 pace, and then it would never really translate to the run, and then there would be other times where, like, I'd just go out with her and we would do, like, 150s, and she would just do her normal, and really not even do too much other than, you know, too much long tempos, and she ran her best half marathons off of that, but she had a really low, um her running economy was terrible. Her VO2 max was high, running economy was terrible, and so, like, for someone like that, just if, your VO2 max is naturally high and, you can handle the distance really well, like, focusing on your running economy,
Mm.
can have the biggest benefit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, she saw more benefit from that than just cranking and cranking and cranking and, running her head into the wall. So,
Yeah. I mean, I the difference between, like, they compare and contrast, like, VO2 max and running economy, like, for example, you had Prefontaine, who had an 84 VO2
mhm,
max, and then you had Frank Shorter, who was 72. which
Mhm.
is like, that's a huge difference. But obviously, like, why is Frank Shore just as like competitive? Because they say that Frank Shore, he had a better running economy.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Steve Fontaine, like, he kind of did flop his arms a little bit in his running
Yeah,
form.
well,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, Courtney, my girlfriend Rose, and, like, so I can go out, so if you think about running economy as just like just being having a smooth rowing stroke, smooth rowing stroke, I can go out and I can hammer on an erg machine like really hard and, like, but it wouldn't translate well to the water because there's no real efficiency in my stroke, So, and that's
Yeah.
how I kind of see running economy is
Uh,
just smoothing it out. You can have the engine, but like, if the tires aren't if you have a flat tire or,
yeah.
you're not going to go fast. So it's, just like work that's what makes running kind of fun is just like there's so many things you can work on or frustrating. It's really hard
Mhm.
to maximize everything that you can. But you have to make some choices at some point. So
Yeah. Like, focus on, like, when you're not, because it's hard to, like, because usually back then I try to correct form, like, maybe throughout the season or even, like, in the beginning season, usually they taught, like, well, if they have the form now, they can't be on taut until maybe at a good time, like off-season running. That's
mhm,
where you focus on, or, like, strength training exercises that teach your body, like
right.
for example, like, teaching my runners, like, doing certain exercises, which I've learned from, like, my younger brother who is a personal trainer. He's told me some stuff like, trying to keep your shoulder blades a little bit back and not trying, like, every exercise you do, don't try to tense them up, especially when you're doing pull-ups. You're trying to
Yeah.
squeeze the shoulder blades back as you're coming up and then down and not trying to, like,
Yeah.
tense them up here, trying to teach them even, like, through, like, the stresses of, like, strength exercises, you're teaching them to,
Yeah.
like, relax back and then tensing up, and also
Well, I
powering
think
up
like
your
more so than form, I feel like just not being tense.
yeah,
And then if you ever see like a great sprinter, they're so loose,
yeah,
like even they're not, like you watch their face and it's just so like when they're at their best, like I'm
yeah,
sure there's times that they're like last few stab strides or something, but you just see their face and it's just bouncing up and down. And I think like just being able to keep, if you can keep your facial muscles relaxed and that,
mm,
that can trickle down. And it's always like a reminder. And like my worst races were the ones where like I always call it like reading a newspaper, where you're
yeah,
just, so if I ever see a picture, I'm like, oh, that couldn't have been a good race. It's like, like that's definitely how, how things go when I'm really struggling and just trying to get through it,
yeah,
so. But I never
like
looked good running, so it's just, but there's times that I looked especially bad.
one guy that I saw, like, years ago, like, said that he would try to, like, remind his run like you're running with an open tube of toothpaste. Don't
Hmm,
squeeze so hard. Yeah, and, like,
yeah,
that's a good analogy. And then there was
mm,
one guy that said run with, like, potato chips, which I feel like that's easier. Like, try not to open the bag, pop the bag,
oh,
and that
okay,
but I think the toothpaste seems a little bit more accurate because 'cause you're not gonna run like this. You're gonna run like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like, you have finger pins in your hands, and that's kinda how teach you how to relax and not squeeze and, like, relax. And usually I'll teach my runners, like, when you get tired, that's when your form needs to be more focused because without realizing it, you're probably fighting your own body's mechanics.
mhm,
And so, usually what I like to do just to, like, while you're running, tense up, then loosen up. What feels
yeah,
fast? Loosen up. But, when they're racing, they might not realize they're tensing up and
yeah.
red
That's when like, yeah, seeing yourself on video, sometimes you're like, oh, that's what I look like.
yeah. And, like,
I
that's
had a
what my
picture of
first
like in college. We were at a cross country meet, and I ran really well. I was really happy with the performance, but I my head would kind of go, when I was really going and turning it on at, full sprint. So there's in the background there's our women's team laughing at me. And I was like, I thought I was having a good one, you know? So like so anyhow, just anyhow, the point is like sometimes seeing yourself in your form, is can can illuminate a lot. So
yeah. I think, like, in my early high school days when, and my dad always pointed out, like, in the finish and you see me get out kicked and you see the other guy, he's, like, more loose. My arms just kinda come up here a little bit,
yeah.
so that's something I had to, like get down in terms of like arm leg relaxation
Yeah.
and
And there's some things that, like, at the end of the race, like, good form or bad form, the outcome's gonna be this, like, you may not be able to, like, beat that person, but I think when you're going all out, like, things, you don't you're not really it's really hard to think about
yeah,
form when you're just trying to get to that line as fast and as, quickly as you can, and, I don't know how you kinda I never really was able to I never really I just was running on it, like, I felt I was best when I was running on instinct, even if my form was not
yeah.
perfect.
I think it's just
So,
like, like a training thing, like teaching habits throughout, like I said, the strength training, and even when you're doing workouts, trying to like hold good form, and even like, for example, even on cool downs. I
mhm,
know like when I was helping coaching out of college, the head coach said we usually do track intervals, and then the cool down was up, a long hill up backed up to the college, and he always says like slow but good form, like don't
yeah,
slouch, just
yeah,
keep practicing that in even moments where you don't think about. So, and I think
mm,
just working on those kind of things, like when even if you're not like working hard, but
yeah,
you're doing, like warm ups and cool downs. And especially on the cool down, because you just did a workout, you're going to go run up a hill slow as you want, but focus on the good form. Don't slouch, keep yourself upright. I mean,
yeah,
I think that can, transpire and like keep teaching your body good habits, but also
yeah,
crucial when you're doing a workout. You just have to focus on, your form, and then eventually it becomes instinct, like you said, like,
yeah,
and then maybe your
absolutely.
body just naturally flows into that state and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Um, I probably could have benefited from, a more weight training and more form work, but, like, we just weren't as detailed back in the old days.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like back then you ran more because I've heard like people just running a lot of mileage. And now I feel like as like time went on, kids are running less mileage, but getting faster off of that.
and, it's crazy how good kids are today.
Mm.
You know, really impressed. So, and some of it's shoes, but that's not all of it,
No, I'm not
They're
a huge believer of just like the shoes. I think overall, I think we're getting faster and people are
there's,
finding ways to, you know,
like a quarter billion more people have come through, just the US. Like, I mean, like, or I don't know how many millions and millions of people have come through, and it makes sense that, some of them are going to be much better. And that I think there's just a big pool of high school athletes that are just like that weren't there when I was there, just, but we didn't have the internet and we didn't have ways to share training. And like, parts of my coaching in high school were, um, probably not ideal, just like you'd look at the training now and you're like, that's what you did, but you got better when you ran more. That was always, I mean, that no matter what, if you start putting in miles, you're going to get faster. And
yeah,
that's the most simplistic thing. And then, uh, some of the, there's some things that, sure, um, we would have, if I, talked to my high school coach, he's like, this is what we do now versus this is what we do then. And this is what we still do. You did this workout and we still did this 30 years later, so,
yeah,
but yeah, that's fun. And I mean, it's, there was my high school had the state champ, uh, for cross country, which was I was pretty excited about. And, cause I'd won it like 35, it's been like 35 years. And, but he's so much better than I was. Like, I'm glad I didn't have to race against him because he's like, you know, probably going to run like 850 in the 2 mile this year. And he went to San Diego, and, he's just, it's just, you always like to see someone from your hometown do well. Um, and I hope that, there's more of those guys from my high school that keep doing that. But it's, you know, uh, I don't know. Time passes in this sport, and I don't know. I just try to appreciate the athletes that are here now as much as I did like the old timers that I used to run with, and I try to get back in touch with people I competed with back in the day, and just old friends, old teammates, old competitors, and you know, And I think the one thing that we say is like, man, these kids are good now. They're really good. And so
Uh,
it's
yeah, I
exciting.
mean, you're seeing more sub 4 milers more recently because I remember back before 2011, there was only, like, 4 or 5 high schoolers of all time breaking 4. Now you're seeing
Yeah, like I mean, Jim
1 a
Riley,
year now.
well, it was Alan Webb was like so.
Yeah,
Um, I raced against I raced against him. You know, oh my my computer's about to die, so I don't have too much more time with and I have to get going. But Alan Webb was amazing. He that was I think he just kicked like a new generation off. It was just like holy shit, like you know,
yeah.
we can run fast.
353 at that time was nuts.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, and then I did remember reading his book, Sub 4, that's, like, his
hmm
first year at Michigan, and
yeah.
obviously, like, I'm pretty sure he wanted to the author wanted to find something, like, great to write about, but it was just turns out to be, like, the frustrations of his first year at Michigan. Um,
Yeah, so I think that's Chris Lear wrote that, and he did
yeah,
Running with the Buffaloes,
yep,
and so his work's always really good, and um, and yeah, some like I mean, Running with the Buffaloes, that was this that story kind of came to him, and just like Chris Severy passed away during while he was
yeah.
there, and that was one of the stories, but on a